Welcome to the world of science fiction stories, and don't forget to like, share and subscribe my channel. Enjoy the listening. Human mechanic breaks chains off alien dog. Then it shows its true purpose. The cold wind of Terran howled across the barren, crater-riddled landscape as Jace Eldon guided his speeder through the shifting dunes. His visor HUD flickered, tracking the weak distress signal that had drawn him here, a repetitive, flickering beacon of desperation pulsing in the dark. Distress signals weren't uncommon in these lawless regions, but something about this one felt wrong. It had been running too long, untouched and ignored. As the wreckage finally came into view, Jace slowed his approach. The vessel was huge, half buried in the dunes, its metallic hull cracked open like a wounded beast. The damage wasn't from a crash, it was deliberate. Scorch marks from weapons fire riddled the sides, panels had been pried open, and whatever had happened here hadn't been an accident. Jace parked his speeder a safe distance away and climbed off, his boots sinking slightly into the sand. The air smelled of rust and scorched metal, the scent of abandonment heavy in the stillness. He reached for his sidearm out of habit before stepping forward, his senses sharp. He had been in situations like this before. Derelict ships, long-dead distress signals, looters long gone. But something in his gut told him this wasn't like before. Then he heard it, a sound, faint and muffled, almost drowned out by the wind, a whimper. Jace froze, he turned his head slightly, listening harder. Then it came again, a cry. Not a human cry, something else. His heart picked up speed as he moved toward the ship, stepping carefully over broken cables and torn hull plating. The sound was coming from inside. He crouched down, peering into the gaping wound of the vessel. The emergency light still flickered dimly, illuminating the twisted remains of what had once been a cargo bay. Crates were overturned, glass shattered, signs of a struggle long past. And then, movement. Jace's breath caught as his visor adjusted to the dim light. There, half hidden behind a collapsed bulkhead, lay something massive. His first thought was that it was a creature, but not like any he'd seen before. It was a dog, but not just a dog, a giant one nearly the size of a land speeder. Its thick fur shimmered faintly with hues of silver and deep navy under the emergency lights. Its head lay against the cold metal, unmoving except for the shallow rise and fall of its breathing. Thick chains were wrapped around its legs and neck, bolted into the walls of the ruined cargo bay, and just beside her, 3 small bundles of fur stirred in the dim light. The puppies, Jace swallowed hard, the mother dog was alive but barely, and the puppies huddled against her were crying, their small bodies trembling against the cold floor. Someone had left them here to die. Jace clenched his jaw, his hands curling into fists. Whatever had happened here, whoever had chained them, had made sure they wouldn't escape. This wasn't a simple case of an abandoned ship, this was cruelty, and he wasn't about to walk away. Jace took a slow step forward, his boots crunching lightly against scattered debris. The mother dog's golden eyes flickered open instantly, sharp despite the exhaustion weighing down her massive frame. She growled low and rumbling, her body tensing, despite the heavy chains keeping her bound, she didn't move to attack. Not that she could, but her message was clear, stay back. Jace raised his hands, keeping his movements slow and easy. There, he murmured, not here to hurt you. The growl deepened though, and her ears flicked at the sound of his voice. The puppies let out another round of whimpers, their tiny bodies shifting closer to their mother, one of them barely lifting its head to look at him before its strength failed and it slumped back down. They were weak, too weak. Jace exhaled slowly, his mind racing. The ship had been abandoned for a while, long enough for scavengers to pick it clean. So how had they survived this long? Then he realized, she had been keeping them alive, even while chained, even while starved, even while waiting for death. She had been enduring for them. Jace's stomach twisted, anger curling hot in his chest. Someone had left her here, trapped her here, and she had done the impossible, she had held on. I'm not about to let that be for nothing. I'm going to get you out of this, he said, carefully reaching for his scanner. The mother dog's eyes narrowed, her muscles tensing again. Not a weapon, he reassured her slowly, turning the scanner on and holding it up for her to see. She watched wearily, but didn't lunge, her body coiled tight. Jace flicked his gaze to the chains, scanning them quickly. His jaw tightened. Alien make, not just steel, something stronger. The etchings along the metal pulsed faintly, locking mechanisms reinforced with an energy field. This wasn't something that could be picked apart with a simple plasma cutter, someone had gone out of their way to make sure she stayed here. Jace's grip tightened on his scanner. Well, screw that, he said as he turned back to the mother dog, whose gaze still hadn't left him. This is going to take a little time, but you and your pups, you're getting out of here. She huffed, her ears twitching, not trust, not yet, but a flicker of something close. Jace set his jaw and reached for his tools. One way or another, he was breaking these chains. He knelt beside the massive creature, his hands steady but his mind racing. The alien chains weren't simple restraints, they were designed to hold something powerful, reinforced alloy infused with an energy lock mechanism, an ugly blend of technology and cruelty. Whoever had left her here hadn't just abandoned her, they had ensured she would never leave. The mother dog shifted slightly as he moved closer, her muscles tensing beneath her shimmering coat. Her golden eyes tracked his every movement, wary, but not hostile. She was exhausted, weak, but she was still watching him, still ready to fight if she had to. Jace adjusted the settings on his plasma cutter, switching to a lower heat level. I know you don't trust me, he murmured, not really expecting a response. That's fine, just don't bite my arm off when I cut you loose. A soft huff left her, almost as if she understood. He exhaled and pressed the cutter to the first shackle. The moment the blade touched the metal, the chain pulsed a faint blue glow, flaring along the etchings, some kind of defensive mechanism. It fought against the heat, resisting the cut. Jace gritted his teeth. Damn it, this isn't going to be easy. The plasma cutter wasn't enough, he needed more power. He dug through his toolkit, yanking out a power cell and jury-rigging the output to overload the cutter's intensity. It was risky, too much heat, and he could burn her, but there was no other way. The mother dog let out a soft growl as the metal hissed, growing white-hot under the enhanced energy stream. Sparks danced across her fur, but she didn't flinch, she just waited. With a loud snap, the first shackle gave way. Jace barely had time to react before the mother dog let out a shuddering breath, shifting her now freed leg for the first time in what must have been days. The puppies let out weak, little yips, pressing against her side, sensing the change. One down, 3 to go, Jace muttered. He moved to the next chain, his movements fast now, working against time. The plasma cutter sliced through the second shackle, then the third, each one falling with a dull clank against the cold floor. Only one was left, the thickest one, coiled around her neck. He hesitated, wondering if she would panic when this came off, if she thought he was attacking her. But before he could think too much about it, she lowered her head. Jace froze, she was offering her throat to him. She understood. A lump formed in his throat, but he quickly focused, pressing the plasma cutter to the final restraint. It took longer, the energy field fought against the heat, resisting even at maximum output. The air filled with the sharp scent of burning metal. The puppies whimpered, and the mother dog stayed still. Then, with a final violent crack, the collar snapped open. The moment it hit the ground, something changed, the light in the room dimmed, as if the energy inside the chains had finally died, the oppressive weight, the crushing silence of the ship, it was gone. The mother dog took her first unchained breath, and then she stood. Jace staggered back, giving her space. She stretched her massive body, unfolding to its full height, muscles trembling from exhaustion but unwavering. She was still thin, still weak, but she was free. The puppies, sensing the shift, let out high-pitched cries of excitement, scampering over each other to nuzzle against her legs. She bent down, running her massive snout over each of them, checking them, reassuring them. Jace couldn't look away. He had expected her to bolt, to run the moment the chains were gone, but she didn't. She turned her head and looked at him, not with fear, not with mistrust, but with something else, something deeper. Jace exhaled sharply, rubbing the back of his neck. "You're welcome," he muttered. She huffed softly, stepping closer. Her sheer size was overwhelming up close, towering over him even in her weakened state. She sniffed at him, studying him, her golden eyes filled with something unreadable. Then, to his complete shock, she lowered her head, a gesture of acknowledgement. "Yeah," Jace murmured, swallowing hard. "Guess that means you don't hate me." A soft rumble vibrated from her chest, not a growl, but a purr. Jace let out a weak laugh. "Okay, that's new." Before he could say anything else, a sharp alarm blared through his visor. His ship's security system had just picked up movement. His stomach dropped. He turned toward the shattered entrance of the wreck, his HUD scanning the area outside. A ship was approaching, not a distress signal responder, not a scavenger, but a retrieval team. His heart pounded. They must have had a beacon in the chains, the moment he broke them, whoever owned her knew, and now they were coming back. The mother dog must have sensed his tension because she stiffened, her ears flicking toward the entrance. A low, warning growl rumbled from her chest. She wasn't scared, she was ready. Jace gritted his teeth. They weren't just after her, they were after all of them, and if they thought they were taking her back, they were about to find out just how wrong they were. Jace's stomach turned as the distant hum of engines grew louder, the sound reverberating through the twisted wreckage around them. The retrieval team had arrived faster than he had anticipated. He had hoped for more time, time to get the mother dog on her feet, time to get the puppies strong enough to move, but time had run out. The mother dog's fur bristled as she turned toward the entrance, her ears perked and her body tense with instinctive readiness. The puppies whimpered, sensing the shift in her energy and pressing themselves against her legs. She nudged them gently, a silent reassurance, before lifting her head. Her golden eyes locked onto Jace, they were waiting for his move. Jace gritted his teeth, forcing himself to think. His ship was parked kilometers away, beyond the dunes. There was no way they'd make it there in time before the retrieval team closed in. The wreck, once a prison, now acted as a temporary shield, but that wouldn't last long. A sharp beep from his wrist cal made his pulse spike, his visor HUD flashed a warning signal, multiple life forms detected inbound. Jace took a deep breath, his fingers flexing over the grip of his pistol. He had one advantage, they didn't know he was here. He moved quickly, pressing his back against the jagged hull, peering through a split in the metal. Figures emerged from the dark, silhouettes against the silver dunes, 4 or 5. Their armor was sleek, tactical, not that of scavengers, guild-trained. This wasn't just a retrieval, this was a kill squad. A voice crackled over their calls, distorted through his earpiece but clear enough to make his blood run cold. Scan for the cargo, if the creature has moved, terminate on sight. His fists clenched, they weren't just here to take her back, they were here to erase her. A deep growl rumbled from the mother dog's throat, vibrating the metal beneath his feet. Jace turned back to her, meeting her gaze. She knew, and she wasn't going to let them take her. Jace took a slow breath and made a choice. "I'll handle this," he murmured, pulling a small device from his pack, a modified EMP charge. It wasn't enough to take down a ship, but it could scramble their tracking equipment for a short window. The mother dog tilted her head slightly, watching him. He looked back at her, jaw tight. "You have to get the pups out of here." She didn't move, didn't agree, didn't run. Instead, she stepped closer, towering over him, her fur bristling as another growl rolled through her chest. "You're not going anywhere, are you?" he said. She bared her teeth. He shook his head. Figures, the sound of approaching boots, echoed through the wreckage. Jace activated the EMP, tossing it toward the entrance. Then the fight began. The EMP exploded, sending a pulse through the air that made Jace's visor flip liquid and the retrieval team's scanners scramble into static for 2 seconds. There was silence, then chaos. The mother dog moved first. Jace barely had time to register it before she launched forward, her massive form surging through the broken ship and trance like a storm-given flesh. The first enforcer didn't even have time to scream before she collided with him, jaws locked onto his arm, teeth crushing through armor. The force of the impact threw him against the hull, his body crumbling like loose stone. As the mother dog whipped around, her golden eyes burned, the other enforcers reacted, weapons raised too late. Jace was already moving, drawing his pistol and firing straight into the second man's visor. The energy bolt struck true, sending him staggering back, disoriented. The mother dog turned to the third before he could react, her massive paw slammed into his chest and sent him flying backward. The sheer power of her strike crushed his armor inward, and he hit the sand with a sickening thud, 3 down, 2 left. The fourth enforcer pulled a stun rifle, adjusting quickly and aiming not at the mother dog but at the puppies. Jace's stomach twisted before the shot could fire. He threw himself in the way as the stun bolt hit him hard, pain exploding across his ribs as he crumpled to his knees. His vision blurred, his head spinning, but he forced himself to keep moving. The mother dog saw it happen, and she lost all restraint. The snarl that left her was not of an animal, it was something ancient, something vengeful. She lunged at the enforcer who had shot Jace, her jaws snapping shut around his throat. There was no scream, just silence, just the sound of armor breaking, just the moment where the hunter became the hunted. The last enforcer stood frozen. Jace coughed, forcing himself up. The stun rifle had knocked the breath out of him, but he was still standing. The lone survivor dropped his weapon, hands trembling, his voice wavering, I didn't know. Jace lifted his pistol, aiming between the enforcer's eyes. Run! The enforcer didn't hesitate, he bolted into the dunes, his figure disappearing into the night. Jace staggered, his knees almost giving out, but before he could hit the ground, a warm, massive body pressed against him, holding him up, the mother dog. Her golden eyes, once filled with fury, were now watching him carefully. Jace let out a weak chuckle. You didn't run, he huffed softly, the sound almost amused. The puppies chirped excitedly, bounding toward them, oblivious to the blood in the sand. Jace exhaled sharply, pressing a hand against his ribs. He turned toward the wreckage, toward the fire still burning, the evidence of their fight. More would come, they weren't safe here. But as he looked at the mother dog, at her cubs, at the unshakable fire that burned behind her eyes, he knew one thing for certain, she wasn't in chains anymore, and she wasn't running now, neither was he. The wind howled through the canyons of Terran, stirring the sand into twisting, ghostly trails. Jace's breathing was uneven, his ribs aching from the stun bolt, but he pushed forward, one arm gripping his side, as he led the mother dog and her puppies into the jagged ravines. He knew they didn't have much time. The retrieval team had been wiped out, but the guild wouldn't stop there, they would send more, bigger ships, stronger hunters, and if they weren't off this rock soon, it wouldn't matter how hard they had fought tonight. The mother dog moved beside him, her massive paws barely making a sound against the rocky ground. She was tired, both of them were, but she showed no sign of stopping. She had tasted freedom, had fought for it, and now she was moving forward with the certainty of something that refused to be caged again. Jace checked his wrist scanner. His ship wasn't far now, just a few more kilometers through the canyon. If they could make it to the plateau, he could send out a scramble signal and keep any more trackers off their tail long enough for takeoff. But the terrain was getting worse, the pathways narrowing between cliffs that loomed like teeth waiting to close in. A sudden chirp from one of the puppies made Jace glance back. The smallest one had fallen behind, its little legs struggling against the uneven ground. Before Jace could react, the mother dog paused, nudging the pup forward with her massive snout. She gave a low, encouraging rumble, and the pup stumbled but kept moving. Something about that moment hit Jace harder than it should have. She wasn't just running, she was teaching them how to survive. His throat tightened when another distant roar of engines snapped him out of it. He turned toward the closing sky, the lights were coming in. Jace cursed under his breath, the guild was already back. A sharp, mechanical screech split the air, a hunter drone, sleek and black, swooping down from above. Its glowing red eye locked onto their position, and Jace barely had time to react before the first shot rang out. The plasma bolt slammed into the ground beside them, sending rock and dust flying in a violent explosion. The puppies yelped, scrambling closer to their mother. Jace's hand was already on his pistol as he turned, taking aim. The drone swerved, adjusting its trajectory, its targeting systems realigning in a blur of movement. Before it could fire again, the mother dog moved with a snarl that shook the canyon walls. She leapt higher than Jace thought possible, her massive jaws snapping shut around the drone's frame. The machine let out a high-pitched shriek as her teeth crushed through its core, sparks and metal tearing apart in a violent explosion. She landed hard, her muscles coiled, as the remains of the drone collapsed in a smoking heap. Jace stared, his pulse hammering. The puppies barked in excitement, oblivious to the danger, as if cheering for their mother. The mother dog didn't celebrate, she lifted her head toward the sky, her golden eyes narrowing, she knew the fight wasn't over. Jace exhaled, gripping his pistol tighter. "Come on," he muttered, "we're almost there." And together they ran. The plateau came into view as they climbed the last stretch of rocky terrain. Jace's ship, the Nomad, sat nestled between two towering cliffs, its hull battered but still flight-worthy. Relief flooded through him at the sight. If they could just get on board, they had a shot at making it out of here. But the guild was already coming from the canyon below. A second ship rose into view, larger than the last, its hull bristling with weaponry, red warning lights pulsing along its sides, scanners locking onto them with deadly precision. Jace knew what that meant, they weren't here to capture anymore, they were here to erase all evidence. His mind worked fast, they needed a distraction, they needed time. "Jace, turn to the mother dog, get the pups on the ship," he said urgently. His voice was firm now. She didn't hesitate this time, she understood. She nudged the puppies forward, ushering them up the ramp, as Jace sprinted toward the Nomad's control panel. He slammed his hand against the emergency override, forcing the engines to power up immediately. The ship hung to life beneath him, thrusters charging but not fast enough. The enemy ship opened fire, the first shot missed, striking a cliff beside them and sending rock cascading down in a violent explosion. The second was closer, slamming against the ground just feet away from the mother dog. She turned fast, her fur bristling, her teeth bared in a snarl, she wasn't running anymore. Jace saw it in her eyes, she was going to fight. His heart clenched. "No," he snapped, running toward her. "You're coming with us." She hesitated, her instincts warring against his words. She was a protector first, a mother before anything else. She had spent her life shielding her young, ready to give her life if she had to. Jace grabbed her massive fur, forcing her to look at him. "Not this time." Her golden eyes locked onto his. "I won't let go." "Not this time," he repeated softly. A second passed, then she moved. She turned, leaping onto the ramp, her puppies pressing close against her legs. Jace ran inside after her, slamming the control panel. The cargo bay door sealed shut just as the ship fired another blast, missing them by inches. The Nomad lurched as the thrusters fully powered up, engines roaring. Jace stumbled into the cockpit, his hands flying over the controls, pushing the ship to full throttle. The guild ship loomed behind them, its cannons locking on one final time. Jace gritted his teeth and punched the afterburners. The Nomad shot forward, the sudden burst of acceleration propelling them through the canyon like a bullet. The force pressed Jace into his seat as he gripped the controls, dodging through narrow cliffs and forcing the enemy ship to swerve wildly to keep up. They were almost out. Then the mother dog moved again, she lunged toward the viewport, pressing her nose against the glass, her ears perking sharply. Jace followed her gaze and saw it. The cliffs ahead curved sharply, forming a natural tunnel just large enough for them to slip through. The enemy ship, larger and slower, wouldn't be able to follow in time. Jace's lips curled into a grin. "Hold on," he shouted, pulling the controls hard and banking the Nomad into a steep dive. The ship tilted, engines flaring, as it plunged toward the opening. The guild ship reacted too late. Jace's ship whipped through the tunnel, the narrow passage barely wide enough to fit them. Sparks flew as the edges scraped against stone, but they made it through. Behind them, the guild ship tried to follow and slammed into the canyon walls. The explosion was deafening. Jace exhaled shakily as he guided the Nomad upward, breaking through Terran's atmosphere and into the safety of open space. Silence filled the cockpit, then a soft sound, a low, deep rumble of satisfaction. Jace turned. The mother dog sat beside him, her golden eyes gleaming, her puppies curled up at her side. She didn't look like a prisoner anymore, she didn't look like a hunted creature, she looked free. Jace chuckled breathlessly. "Yeah," he murmured, "we made it." She huffed softly, and for the first time, she wagged her tail. The vast blackness of space stretched endlessly before them, the distant stars blinking like 1,000 silent watchers. The Nomad soared through the void, leaving Terran nothing more than a fading speck in the rear scanners. The guild ship was gone, reduced to fire and debris, and there were no signs of immediate pursuit. For now, they were safe. Jace let out a slow breath, running a hand over his face. His body ached, his ribs still sore from the stun blast, but they had made it somehow. Against all odds, they had survived. The soft hum of the ship's engines filled the silence, steady and reassuring. The mother dog lay stretched across the cargo bay, her massive form curled protectively around her puppies. The little ones were fast asleep, their small bodies rising and falling in unison, utterly at peace for the first time since Jace had found them. The sight did something to him, a quiet warmth settling in his chest that he hadn't felt in a long, long time. She was watching him again. Jace met her golden eyes from across the room, the same intensity in them as always, sharp, intelligent, weighing on him in ways that no simple animal ever could. But something had changed. The weary distrust she had once held was gone, replaced by something deeper, understanding. She huffed softly, shifting her weight as if testing her freedom for the first time since they'd escaped. "Ever had a home?" Jace asked, exhaling and leaning against the metal wall. She tilted her head slightly. "Not a cage, not a prison, a real home," she seemed to say, though she offered no words. Of course, she didn't answer, but he didn't need her to, he could see the truth in her eyes. No, she never had, neither had he. He rubbed a hand over the stubble on his jaw. "Well," he muttered, glancing at the pups, "looks like you've got a family now." She blinked, then, to his complete shock, she rested her massive head against his leg. Jace stiffened. She had tolerated him before, had trusted him enough to fight beside him, but this was different, this was acceptance. He swallowed hard, his hand hovering over her fur before finally giving in and running his fingers through her thick, warm, strong coat. She let out a deep, contented sigh. Jace chuckled softly. "Guess that makes me part of it too, huh?" The mother dog closed her eyes, and he took that as a yes. 3 days later, the Nomad slipped into orbit above Anis 9, a lush, green planet that glittered like an emerald against the backdrop of space. It was a sanctuary world, an untamed reserve far beyond guild control, where creatures that had been hunted, experimented on, or abandoned could finally live without fear. Jace tapped a few buttons on the control panel, scanning the surface below, plenty of open fields, deep forests, freshwater lakes, everything they needed to start over. "This place will work," he murmured. "Good land, no chains." The mother dog stood beside him in the cockpit, staring out at the planet. She didn't move, didn't react, just watched for a second. Jace wondered if she would leave, if she would take her pups and vanish into the wilds, free at last. But when he turned to her, she was still watching him, still waiting. Jace exhaled, dragging a hand through his hair. You know, you don't have to stay with me, right? She tilted her head. I mean it. He continued, this is freedom. You get to choose now. She looked at him for a long moment, then turned to her puppies, who were now wrestling playfully in the co-pilot's seat, completely unaware of the weight of the decision before them, and then she wagged her tail. Jace laughed, a real, full-bodied laugh, something he hadn't done in years. All right, he said with a smirk, guess that settles it. With a final pull of the controls, the Nomad descended, cutting through the clouds and into the new world below. This time there were no chains, no cages, no masters, just open skies, endless land, and the promise of something new, something better, something free.